Yeah, good evening. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Connect Africa, and welcome to our weekly session where we analyze topical issues in the continent. We have here our regular analysts, I can say by now, Dr. Biniam, Miss Kun, and Brother Gebrehiwot Ewnetu. They have been here so many times. Yeah, so let's go into it. Welcome, my brothers. I'm happy to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
Yeah. So our today's topic is what is the situation in Ethiopia post the peace deal, and what are the actions taken by the government of Ethiopia and also TPLF post that peace deal, because we have seen some progresses, positive and negative. It depends which one is what doing. So the first question, actually, let me just say this because it's really important for this platform. It's a Pan-African media platform. The whole intention of discussing this issue is actually to contribute positively to the peace deal process, or in a way that it's peace deal is kind of vigilant sometimes, so to nurture it, how to make it work for the people of Ethiopia and to the region, and to the world at large. So as you know, just to give some background quickly, as we all know, the Ethiopia peace deal that has been signed between Ethiopia's government and TPLF in the beginning of this month in South Africa, and this peace deal was achieved through led by the African Union, mainly the elder or former Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo, but also it has other officials from Kenya. And also from South Africa. So this peace agreement has brought hopes to end, the 2 years of war in the northern Ethiopia that has been started in November 2022, in which TPLF attacked the Ethiopian National Defense Force, the Northern Command Force. So the 2 years of conflict marked atrocities, killing, starvation, displacement of people in Tigray, Amhara, Afar. So this peace agreement actually has raised hopes for those who suffered the most during this war, meaning the people of Tigray, Amhara, and Afar. And at large, of course, to the people of Ethiopia. As Olusegun Obasanjo said, the peace agreement is a new dawn for Ethiopia, but also I would like to extend and say that this is a new dawn for Africa, as it has shown, or as it's championed, the AU principle, meaning African solutions to African problems. Having said that, I would like to go to first, maybe Gebrehiwot, my brother Gabri. I'm going to start with you. You have shared an article which I read, and you kind of analyzed the state of this peace deal in detail. What has been agreed, what are the actions taken by the two parties, and which you drew your conclusion in order to make it work for the people of Ethiopia. So yeah, let's go ahead and walk us through that analysis.
I mean, it's not much to walk through. My basic opinion is that currently the peace deal is being undermined by the US and the TPLF, and it's undermined in the same way. They signed an agreement to recognize Ethiopia's sovereignty, to recognize that the Ethiopian government is the only legitimate authority in Ethiopia, and that they will submit to the constitutional arrangements of the Constitution of 1995, which they themselves, as TPLF, wrote and had signed. Now, the issue is, according to that constitution, the Ethiopian government and the institutions thereunder are the sole holders of Ethiopian sovereignty. They are the representatives of Ethiopia. And that's how they signed the agreement in Pretoria. That's how they signed the agreement in Nairobi. The Ethiopian government was not willing to negotiate on this topic. Now, the TPLF having gone back, the negotiators having gone back to Mahlet, their response has been, to their position has been changed to again wanting to negotiate borders with Eritrea. They want to negotiate, they want to be the ones holding the line of control, as it were, between Eritrea and Ethiopia. They want to decide how and when international peace deals, especially the Algiers Agreement, will be implemented. And these things, of course, cannot be done by a local party, especially one, as you said, that attacked the Northern Command and is officially a terrorist organization still in Ethiopia. So they have decided to work against it. It's very clear. They still have not, according to the peace deal, they were supposed to start disarmament and demobilization. They have not. They've continued to put up delaying tactics for that purpose, while undermining the purpose of the deal. And the same with the USA. Right now, when the United States State Department gives briefings, they talk about the Tigray Defense Forces, the Tigray government. They are recognizing the TPLF as legitimate rulers within Tigray. Now, obviously, this is impossible if we are to have the Pretoria Agreement implemented. You cannot have one party to that agreement deciding that they are going to change the terms of that agreement, change the authority of the person making the agreement. That's one. But more importantly, it's a declaration of war. Wars are fought for political purposes. And in this case, the purpose of war by the TPLF and their allies was to change the constitutional order in Ethiopia. So far, they have failed. What we can see from their briefings is that they intend to continue. That's my view. Now, and that is their action so far. So that's, I think, the only conclusion to have. From the Ethiopian side, I'm afraid I have no conclusions, because the Ethiopian government so far seems committed to the peace deal. They are saying that regardless of what the TPLF and the US are saying, that the Ethiopian government will uphold its end of the bargain as long as TPLF starts implementing the peace deal and recognizing the peace deal. So at this point, I think it's very hard to guess where it will go, unless the TPLF and the US relinquish their demands to change the constitutional order in Ethiopia. I think we are headed to another war. That is my view. Unfortunate and as pessimistic as it is. But let's see if they continue on that path. That's all. That's my only comment at this point. Yeah. I can't hear you, Mahlet. I think you're still on mute.
No, I said thank you, Brother Gabriel, for that. Yes, even if it's pessimistic, hopefully or forcefully, we need to draw a positive conclusion, because that is the only way, let me come back to let's go to now to Brother Biniam. We have seen, Gabriel has touched upon it. We have seen developments, especially the TPLF after they got back to Mekelle. Especially I think it was yesterday, him and General Sadkan, the interviews that they gave. It's literally denying the whole thing that was said in the beginning of this month. Some people say, or some analysts say, what gives the ground is that there is a difference, or what has been agreed in Pretoria and in Nairobi Can you tell us, from seeing the action and of what you have read and everything, what made TPLF, to change its tone or to change its statement or totally to even deny? Can you maybe you can withdraw some points from the agreements and we can discuss.
Thanks, Mahlet. I couldn't agree more with what Mr. Gebre has already raised. Yeah, very important points that you mentioned, and I need to look into that. Yeah, by backtracking how this peace agreement came about and the conditions written there and the intents and the overall outlook of it. Remember in that Pretoria engagement towards this agreement, TPLF and the Americans wanted a cessation of hostilities, just a cessation of hostilities, and it's the Ethiopian negotiator that insisted we need to have a permanent cessation of hostilities. That means that there must be a path towards a permanent peace, not just stop this war so that when TPLF regroup again, come back and wage another war. And then all those last three war adventures of TPLF, what we have seen is that they stop with a regroup and then wage a war. Stop and regroup and wage a war. So they wanted it as a delaying tactic to stall the momentum that NDF and its allied forces had been making, heading towards Mahlet, taking over a number of cities in town. In fact, it was claimed that 70% of the region is already taken by the NDF. And of course, Mahlet and all the other cities are what's being left behind unoccupied, and they could have been occupied as well. But the Ethiopian government wanted to give peace a chance. The only way out of this conundrum is eventually some kind of peaceful settlement. War could be there, it could be warm, but unless you have a peaceful settlement of it, then it would going to create a condition for another war. And that's what the Ethiopian government wanted to avoid at all times. So, in those two deals, the Nairobi one followed as a way of, creating conditions for implementation of what has been agreed in Pretoria. It's not a departure from it. And of course, TPLF has considered it that it's won by inserting that particular phrase. Non-NDF forces and foreign forces must come out of Ethiopia, or the region, it doesn't say. And it doesn't say which foreign forces must leave the region. Sudan is also in Ethiopia, remember that, and been participating in war. So is it because the Ethiopian government said that you're talking about Eritrea, but what about Sudan? We need to problematize those details. But TPLF insists upon that this foreign forces must be Eritrea, and of course non-NDF forces are also specifically mentioned, Afar regional forces and Amhara regional forces. Now they are claiming this as a victory on their side in order to create a division between federal government and the Amhara region and the Amhara population in general. And of course, Afar is also at the background as well. Yeah, they're going to be discontent. And they wanted to create a narrative that would say that the Western, what they claim to be Western Tigray must be handed over as part of this deal. That's what they say. The constitutional order must be implemented. So this is our interpretation that they have, and they are interpreting it in such a way it would serve them. And those interpretations are made possible because there are no finer details on those agreements. And that's what they're trying to manipulate. The Americans had been also very much adamant that those are the facts. as part of the agreement. Yeah, what needs to happen and how it should happen. They're dictating the whole term, and in fact, they're no longer observers, or they no longer facilitators. They are positioning themselves as guarantors, as a protectors, and a main player in this particular agreement, and which wasn't the case at the beginning. It was an African-led initiative, AU-led initiative, but the Americans have taken over for some reason, and they're sabotaging it. They're not facilitating it. They're not creating the condition for full implementation of it. They are obstructing it, which is the dangerous part. And why are they obstructing it? Once again, it's a match in heaven between TPLF and the Americans. The Americans want also a division between Eritrea and Ethiopia, and some kind of tension between Amhara within Ethiopia itself, between the Amhara and the federal government. Their assessment is that if the Amhara region is not giving federal government a strong support, it will be in a weaker position and could arm twist it and makes their position in negotiating with Ethiopia a lot stronger. That's the kind of assessment, silly assessment. For the TPLF, divided Ethiopia is, it's a great thing for them, but also a divided region is also great for them. So that's why they push in this, an assumption that Ethiopia and Eritrea would somehow be fighting and squabbling over this. And the assumption is that Eritrean government wants something else and Ethiopian government also wants something else. And they have created a narrative around that. They claim that the federal government doesn't want total elimination of TPLF, while the Eritrean government wants total elimination of TPLF, and therefore a difference there. Yeah, I think that's far from the truth. Yeah, the Ethiopian government would like also a peaceful region, and the Eritrean government also wants a peaceful region with TPLF or without TPLF. That's the condition both want. If TPLF is willing to give peace a chance, and I think anybody in the region wants to allow TPLF to exist as a political entity, and if the people of Tigray also want TPLF to continue, but also contribute positively and constructively to the region's integration, development, and stability, I think nobody minds that. What we are despising, what we hate most about TPLF is it's a desire to be a tool for foreign governments, and it's a desire to be a destabilizing force in the region. And we have seen it from their interviews. They have consistently made those things very clear. They want a divided region. In fact, Tzadkan and General Tzadkan, I don't know if you want to call it general anymore, but Tzadkan and Getachew as major negotiators of the TPLF are saying that these are the things they want. They want to stall the military movement momentum of Ethiopian government forces, and buy time and regroup themselves, create a condition that would allow them to create a tension between Ethiopia and Eritrea, and also between the federal government and the Amhara region and forces in the region of Amhara. And that's a very dangerous intention, and it's not abiding by this agreement, create a condition for peace, confidence building measure that is being claimed for. Those are now all breached by TPLF and their propagandists. And now what they're saying is that we have an agreement between TPLF with the federal government, not with Eritrean forces or the Amhara forces. That's what they say. Therefore, they can say anything about those two forces, but not say anything about the federal government forces. So the NDF is now a noble actor, but those allied to it, those who have been working with it, are villains. And that's how they try to portray it. And it's not going to be contribute to this peace we all want. And of course, TPLF is also in its last breath, and that's what they're trying to do, desperate attempt. It's not going to change much as far as I'm concerned. I think I've said enough for introduction. And I give it to you. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Brother Biniam. Really interesting. Gabriel, what do you, I mean, as from, if we take them from for their words from yesterday, then TPLF is preparing for a fourth round attack again. At this point, I think I really would like to know, and many people, this is what people have been saying. If there is anyone who can stop TPLF, because it's again and again we have witnessed that TPLF is not for peace, but we have lost lives, and of course, in Tigray, many young people have been sacrificed to this war. What is the reaction of the people of Tigray? If you have, if you have been able to assess or to, I don't know, to hear or anything, especially after the peace deal, and in terms of what would you say also the contribution of the people of Tigray to keep this peace deal and prevent the PLF from going another round of war?
I mean, for my part, I can't speak to it. All my relatives who are Tigrayan are part of the TPLF or supporters. So it's very few of us that are in opposition. So I don't think it would be for me to say. I've always opposed them, so there's no point in me impugning to them my own opinions. So I will leave the people of Tigray, I think, will have to decide if TPLF represents them. But if they do, we come to what Biniam just said, that right now they are preparing, TPLF clearly are preparing for a fourth round of war. But what this war will look like is a different issue. They are on their last legs. And what they're hoping from this peace deal and the kind of arguments that they're providing that he just went through, that they're saying we have to separate Amara Fano and the Amara body public from the rest of Ethiopia, this, that, and the other. This is a fantasy that they've built for themselves. The field marshal for the ENDF manages the Amara Special Forces. They also manage the militia, the Fano, that have fallen under the Central Command. Those who have not fallen under Ethiopian Central Command are now in jail. Those who remain, for some of them, the most famous would be Beyecha Zaude, for example, and the army that he raised are still loyal to Ethiopia, are following the Central Command. So the idea that that is a separate force to the Ethiopian National Defense Force is a fantasy that they have created. They always tend to live a bit in their own fantasy world, politically. For the Americans, though, I think that's where the important thing is, because the Americans, I don't think, are living in a fantasy. They realize the TPLF is on its last legs. They realize that this argument isn't going to work. And I think the Americans, whether this war will continue or not, will depend on America's support to the TPLF. Right now, it's not just Debrecen, what's his name, Tzadkan and Getachew Reda coming out in this interview. Debrecen and others also have repeatedly stated now that they want more international community support. Their sorry about that. Their infrastructure, their political infrastructure outside of the country, outside of Ethiopia, so in the Europe and the US, has been advocating for direct intervention by European forces, direct intervention by Ethiopia, by America, direct intervention by NATO. And they've been doing it specifically now. They've been asking for specific weaponry in public. So this is not that shows you now, from now on, the dynamic has shifted for them. As Dr. Biniam said, they're on their last legs. And what they're hoping to buy is time to get foreign weapons. And this is exactly what they've been saying to their population. To the Tigrayan population, they've been saying, we've lost a lot, we're not in our best condition. But as long as you continue advocating for Tigray, which means saying genocide, genocide, genocide. Just yesterday, they had two people on Deutsche Welle in the Amharic and Tigrinya versions saying that VOA BBC, all the Western media that generally helps to get Western armies and NATO involved in war, that got them in Libya and Iraq, the same process is applying now. So I think what they're telling the Tigrayan people from what, and this is clear, is that the only way to go forward is for them to help the international community intervene. Now, abroad, this has not worked. Whether it works within the country, we will see. One thing we have to recognize is that a lot of people in Tigray are loyal to the TPLF. But if they stay loyal, and then if the Americans do not intervene, which I don't think they can currently, but we'll see. If they don't intervene, if they don't manage to provide them support, and they maintain the dynamic they have now, they will lose support eventually. So it's a matter of years and months or weeks or years. But what that means is during those months or weeks or years, the Tigrayan people will get poorer. They will be run by basically what is a mafia. They're not trying to govern as it is. I don't know if you know much about the guerrilla war before, but in Eritrea and in Tigray, during the war where they took power against the Derg, they did govern. They collected taxes, they built hospitals, and you have to govern. And that is part of the reason Welkite is such a contested issue. Once they took over Welkite during the Derg, they did do a lot of demographic changes, regardless of what people discuss now. But because they governed, people could see them as an alternative to the Derg. Now they do not govern. So it's very hard to see what option they're presenting to the Tigrayan population. So although I won't put words in the mouth of any loyal supporter of TPLF, it's very difficult to see how this will go on. If they don't start governing, if they don't start trying to print a currency, establishing a central bank, trying to use some method of ensuring people can live their lives, their only option will be either America drops in a whole load of bombs and then helps them get to Addis Ababa, which does not seem likely currently. Or, they keep the Tigrayan people hostage, hoping that the Tigrayan people will continue to support them. And then, that's for all of us to see together. This is, of course, barring any other changes, unless the Ethiopian National Defense Forces push on and defeat them, unless they're defeated in battle, unless there's a second round of guerrilla warfare, if they can launch it, which I doubt, but we'll see. But unless things radically change, what it looks like now is either they lose support or they continue trying to fabricate reasons for the Europe and America and others to join in. And you see this is already failing. It's partly failing because the West has supported Ukraine so much they don't have any appetite for a second or third proxy war. That's one. That's one reason. The second reason is Europe and others, I think a lot of people are seeing now, are starting to be hesitant about just repeating what the TPLF say. They're not far from changing. They will always follow the American line. I don't think they have an independent foreign policy myself. But currently, Europe is not treating this issue as it did 6 months ago or a year ago. And I think the Tigrayan people notice this. Other Tigrayan leaders notice this. Opposition parties within Tigray, which are loyal to TPLF, established by TPLF, like TIP and Sawet, Salsawi Weyane, they are also saying, okay, we have to ask for independence, which is one option, but we'll see if it continues. That is an alternative to the TPLF. And then opposition parties run by Aragawi Berehe and others outside of Tigray are of the opinion that if this continues, TPLF will collapse. We will have to see, I think. It's very difficult to judge. I don't see any way, however, without a direct intervention from outside forces, that TPLF survives for very long. but we'll see.
Thank you, brother Gabri. Interesting that I'm happy you brought also, the how far the U.S. or the non-Ethiopian or the non-African actors can go into this or bringing TPLF back to power. Brother Biniam, like as researchers says in their research, there are two things about peace agreement. There is a good agreement and there's a bad agreement. I mean, both are peace agreements. Good agreements in a way that if the peace is that it is durable. Bad is when things keep on postponed or delaying all implementation or what have been agreed upon in the agreement. Now, of course, we want to, or this platform intention is to contribute to the nurturing of this peace deal. What do you think the role of what do you think it should be the role of the regional leaders? We have seen the post-peace deal so far. From 2nd of November, it was much of comments by the U.S. government and others, but much of them coming from the U.S. And we have seen some things published in Kenya. Other than that, welcoming it when it was signed, we haven't seen anything. What do you think? How can or how can we keep this peace deal? What should be the role of the regional leaders? What should be, even as a citizen, Ethiopians, Eritreans, or the diaspora? How can we keep this peace deal?
Thank you, Mahlet. Before I go into your questions, I would like to just add something what Basai Gabra has said. Yeah, what would TPLF bring to people of Tigray? War, nothing else. That's the only thing that they could give them, and that cannot go on for any longer than they have already done so. Yeah, it's the end of it. The appetite for war is finished, even in Tigray, despite all the support that they gained from people of Tigray. The appetite for more war is no longer exist, and that's, I think, very much important. External actors, external forces might want it to for this to drag on for forever. They thrive on chaos, they thrive on division because it keeps us busy, and then they could exploit those moments of weakness that they create, and they create the problem, and they come as the managers of that problem as a solution, and then they extract something that they would need out of that. Other than that, I think they're not going to contribute much as an outsiders. Okay, those who come to aid of TPLF, whether you call them European Union, the West, America, whatever the case may be. Yeah, even we know Egypt had been embroiled in this as well. Yeah, this is not going to work. It has outlasted its expiry date, and people in this area are looking forward to a new momentum, a new ground. Now, how do we contribute to this new ground, new momentum? This new momentum can only build by working toward a better understanding of each other. Those of us who have been dismissing people in Tigray, we need to understand the kind of plight that they have gone through. We need to understand the kind of misery that they were subjected to. Yeah. And through brute force. And we need to also recognize that TPLF, the people in that region had not been a willing participant in this in many instances. We might see the diaspora who've been beneficiaries of the system, but for people in Tigray, the actual people who live in Tigray, it's just been so difficult and very much troublesome. Last 2 years had been devastating. Families had been fragmented, number of deaths, I would imagine, displacement, and the rest. So it's very important to recognize that. Yeah. So we need to start by peeling those scars and wounds, try to mend them, try to be understanding, and engage with each other, yeah, in a constructive manner. And that's always very important. And remember, when you fight with, don't fight. There's a Tigrinya saying in Eritrea, don't fight with your two hands, so that you use the other hand when you're shaking, when you're making peace. It's very important to recognize that. We shouldn't engage in that. I mean, for TPLF, it's, everything goes. You make up stories, you make claims, lousy claims, claims that even are very difficult to repeat, yeah, let alone make them in a public. And the old and the young, they keep coming out with those kinds of claims. It's just gruesome, yeah. They're not seeing the future. They are only seeing what they could extract from that particular moment. And those are lies, we all know them. So we should not invest in that. We should invest in a little bit more understanding, reasonable engagement. Remember, we have been dismissing our regional leaders as well. Kenya had been dismissed, but then we're hearing that Uhuru's contribution to this peace negotiation, it is very significant. I didn't mention that, neighbors are neighbors. We always have to see the good in them, and we hope that all contribute positively to our neighbors. And that's a good neighborliness that would take us to the future, take us to the next step, So it is in that spirit of constructive engagement, we need to see how we should contribute to a better stability and better engagement. Yeah, and not always what you can extract, what temporal gains that you're going to get as an individual or as an individual country. Yeah, that's very destructive. That's what TPLF's Ethiopia did, by the way, in Sudan, in South Sudan, and in Eritrea and Somalia. It's very dangerous. Not, those temporal elements have their shelf life, but then you have people living together for a very long time. The roots are deeply integrated. Yeah, if you scratch beneath the surface, we all are integrated. We are all interrelated in that region. So we need to recognize, emphasize on that sameness, emphasize on the common narrative, try to, create a common understanding. Those are very important. Yeah, I know that people would try to split hair and try to see what this agreement means, in terms of surrender or not, whether it's going to be respected by TPLF or not. Whether TPLF respects this or not, TPLF is finished. It has no future in the region. I can pretend that it would have a future in the region, but it has done so many damages, so many mistakes, so many fatal errors and wars and misadventures. It's not going to survive the politics in the region. It has no space for that, even in Tigray. And I think that they would like to see TPLF somehow coming in, participating. But it might participate, it might have a seat in a regional parliament. We will be fine with that. Yeah, we'll be fine with that. Even having a seat in the parliament in Ethiopia, we'll be fine with that. But it's not going to be a major player in any form. If it wants to do that, then if it wanted to do that, it should have played a better game. Yeah, it should have reasoned a little bit more, not just be a tool for some brutal empire that wanted to reconfigure the region in a way that would work for its its interests, which is always destructive and trampling upon our interests, and that's what we are rejecting here. So I'm not worried about what the peace deal says. I'm not worried about what this agreement, and I know that TPLF would walk out of it, and the Ethiopian government might say, okay, we're going to have to finish this job if it comes to that. But we need to see beyond that. People-to-people relationships are far more important. important, and we need to invest in that. Not only in Ethiopia, Eritrea, but also broaden that to Sudan. Sudan is our people as well. Somalia, Kenya, South Sudan. And the more we push, and of course, Djibouti, we always forget Djibouti. But and some say that Djibouti is just another, Eritrea and Ethiopia. So, and it's always going to work if we push along those lines, and if we create that narrative that we are same, we are related, we should be integrated, and whittle out all the negative, the past mistress, so many wounds that are there to heal. So we need to let them heal bit by bit and participate in that healing process as well. And I think if we invest in that, we could go forward, and we could go forward in a far more strong strides. Thank you, Mahlet. I'll give it back to you.
I'm muted. Thank you, Brother Biniam, really, for that. People-to-people relation is indeed very important. We always, when we talk about, as if war between two people. And the best example for me is I have had chances to see Israel, the border of Israel and Palestine, how people work it together by doing sport or, different things. They know how to live together without any leader, without any politics. But the way it is, propagated, the relation between Palestine and Israel, one would think they have no contact at all, but they do a lot of things together. It's always really important. People will know, have been doing that, and that's exactly what they are doing, and will always know how to cohabit and how to live together. That's indeed a very important point. Brother Gabri, what do you think it should be done really to make this peace deal durable? Even if it's pessimist, we want to hear it.
No, but what Dr. Biniam just said is very much how the Ethiopian government is approaching it, and I think that's the only way one can approach it as a government in public. There really is. You can only hope for the best, continue to build ties, and as you say, ensure that cohabitation is possible. But to go back to his point about how people exploit these things, and a good example from our history in this region is that Ethiopia was paid basically by America to invade Somalia. We had no reason to invade during Mahlet's time. That was the first chance in our lifetime to have peace between Somalia and Ethiopia, because when the Islamic courts came to power, they said, we will recognize post-colonial borders. They were the first Somali government to do so. No other government before or since has done so. So they were the only ones. And we invaded them, we brought them down because America paid us. When I say us, I mean Ethiopia as a country. Now, what has happened as a result, though, is you hear the news now how Somalia was used as a dumping ground for radioactive waste from Italy, from Norway, from Denmark. The population is decimated. More than half the population was put into the refugee or IDP camps. It was the most abysmal torture of a population that could be done. And it was done because America paid and because the TPLF and the APRDF, some of who are still in government, decided to participate in that crime. Now, as you can see, we're trying to get past that with this new government in Ethiopia. We are trying to build peace with the Somalis. We are trying to get past this. And there are people in Somalia who are also working with the Ethiopian government to get past that. But it's not going to happen in one day. You've had the panel here talking about issues in the Horn of Africa, specifically detailed with Somalia, and you've heard the responses. There's still a long time to go before we are fully and properly at peace. What we have done is we've stopped fighting, is what we have done. We have not built a peace yet, and that takes a lot of time. It takes also wisdom, and this is the problem currently. It takes the wisdom isn't expressed by the people. It's expressed by its leaders. We need leaders to go and make that discussion. Currently, the TPLF is not behaving in that fashion for the Tigrayan people. So when you talk about cohabitation and peace, as much as Ethiopia has a government that is actively trying to build peace in the region, and it has partners in Somalia and Eritrea and Djibouti who are helping it do that, TPLF is an actor that has decided that it does not want peace. So to salvage this peace deal, in my opinion, as a peace deal, I'm not too optimistic. What the Ethiopian government can do is, as Dr. Biniam said, follow a policy that does not escalate the violence at any chance, always accept peace, even if it causes a political cost, which is what the current Prime Minister of Ethiopia has said to Parliament, that whatever the cost, they are committed to the peace as signed in Pretoria. As long as the constitutional order, the legal order in Ethiopia is respected, they are willing to take any political cost to make peace. And in Ethiopia, we touched upon the Amara region before, and Amara politics, there is a cost to peace. Yes, I think the Ethiopian government is committed to peace. And if the TPLF tomorrow was to agree and it implemented the peace deal, and TPLF won seats in parliament, as Dr. Biniam said, that will be a huge cost to the Prosperity Party as a party. It's unlikely politically to navigate that safely. But they are willing to do it, and they have committed to it in public, which is a difference. This is not us guessing. They have sat down and said that this will be the cost, and even if this is the cost, we will follow it. So I think that is a good start. But it takes two. And currently the TPLF is not meeting anybody halfway. So as long as there is no direct war, I think that is a start. And we'll see how it goes. I don't think it's salvageable while the TPLF is in the mindset that they have. And also the US, we haven't said it, but the US is intent on removing Eritrea. This has nothing to do with the Ethiopian war. This is something they have been trying to do for the past 20 plus years. Even if they were to lose every ally in the region, their enmity for the Eritrean government and the system of government is higher than any other political issue. And that's because of the strategic position that Eritrea has on the Red Sea. And so while America exists, as it does, run by a very brutal, fascistic, war-loving Republican or Democratic Party. I mean, they might as well be one party when it comes to war. While they are in power, their position on Eritrea is unlikely to soften. Because they have, you touched upon Djibouti, AFRICOM and Camp Lemonnier are now based there. And the fact that the Red Sea is mostly controlled from territory in Eritrea and that the most lucrative parts of the Gulf of Aden are in Somalia has always been an issue for them. So it's not just about how us building peace, it's also ensuring that America, who has used these divisions for these very nefarious, very brutal policies, is unable to continue using the TPLF as a tool of foreign policy in the Horn of Africa. And doesn't mean we all agree with everything, but I think all the region, including Sudan and Kenya now, have seen the value of reducing TPLF's ability to represent American interests in the Horn of Africa. And all of the countries in the Horn are invested in the sovereignty of their legal systems. And also they see the political divisions between Sudan and Ethiopia now, as Dr. Abiy has said in Parliament, cover this. They are saying, okay, we don't want an American proxy here. So I think there is progress, but it takes time. It really does take time, and we'll see how it goes. Mahlet, you're still on mute.
You're muted.
Okay, yeah. Now, thank you very much, my brother Gabriel, and I thank you as well, brother Biniam, for your usual contribution here. Really, I mean, what we do or what we try to do here is to create awareness, to discuss what's happening in Africa, by African analysts, to look at things from the African perspectives or from the Pan-Africanism perspective, and what we just did to look at the post-deal state or situation in Ethiopia is just that hopefully, or we believe that this to our audience, this has brought some kind of awareness and kind of shed light. So we will keep on discussing this kind of issues, meaning following the issue in Ethiopia and as well in topical issues in Africa. I thank you very much, my brothers here, for the usual contribution. So thank you. So that was
Thank you both.
today. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good one.
Thank you. Have a good night.